what we do is we host all the applications and the data and the whole user flow and front-end piece of the experience, right? So we try to take as much of this off the plate of our customer as possible. What we need from you is the following. Number one, you have to be able to change the page templates to incorporate a feature somewhere, right? So in essence, you create a container, you create a div on some pages that we then load into that div the fully configured application. So in essence, it's a black box that we populate. Now, where the difficulty comes in is, well, how hard is it to change a certain page template?
I think we can.
Which page templates are harder to change than others, right? So that's a question, that kind of goes back to you and your team, right?
I think we can change the page template, because the last time I looked at it, these are JSP pages, and if the changes are minimal, like adding a div, that's doable.
Okay, great. So if that's doable, that's the majority of the battle. So that's step one. Step two, with that div, you're going to insert some JavaScript code that calls our server. And with that JavaScript code, you're going to include a JSON object that describes the product. Right? So the JSON object will tell us, here's the picture URL, here's the product name, here's the price, whatever information on the product that should be shared with us in order to create content that goes on to Facebook, like a product description, for example. That part of the implementation is very similar to embedding like buttons. And I noticed you have like buttons on your product detail pages.
Right.
So to do that, you had to create some markup language to populate the open graph tags.
That is correct.
So our implementation would be the same as that. So the JSON object that you pass to us has those components.
Okay.
Now that piece is pretty much all that you need to get going. Those three things. Change the page template, put in the JavaScript code to call our server, and populate the JSON object so we know what the product is.
Okay. Can you send me a sample? What would it look like 1, 2, and 3?
Yep. Yeah, we'll send you a sample integration guide.
Okay.
Now, those are all for features that, we don't need to write any data to your system, right? Notice that all of those were based on, in essence, you passing us data, but no data flowing back to you. Now, the only integration where data needs to flow back to you is registration, right? Because if we get an email address from the user and we want to create a user account based on that email address, you need to store that in your system. And whenever you do that and whenever you change the registration flow of a site, that automatically makes it a bigger project.
Yes. And I'm very hesitant to start that right now.
Right. So I think what we can do, right, is we can create the social experience and we can create the Vidi-like experience, and all of that can be hosted by us and can be independent of your registration system. We can then do that as a proof of concept. A smaller number of users are going to opt in as a result, but at least we can see what the value is for those particular users. And that can then help create a business case such that when you launch the new platform, we can hopefully bake in the Facebook login into the new platform. Because that's what will then drive a higher number of users into the system. Does that make sense?